Bryce Harper is about to become the Kevin Durant of Major League Baseball. What do I mean by that? No, he's not going to the Yankees next year. No, he's not signing with the Dodgers. He's not, becoming a snake and going to the best team in the game. But Bryce Harper has a real chance to go down as a top 5, top 10 all-time player, while at the same time never being the best player in the sport. Think about that. The NBA has actually had a good amount of these guys. But like I talked about with Kyrie Irving, the narrative is different. When you have guys like Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain, there was kind of the argument, you could argue who was 1 and who was 2 in the league. When you had Bird and you had Magic, you could argue who was 1 and 2 in the league. You get to a point where you have guys like Tim Duncan and Hakeem Olajuwon, who are both top 10 all-time players, and yet neither of them were ever the best player in their sport. Obviously, Hakeem Olajuwon played during the Jordan era. Jordan was clearly the best player in the sport. Tim Duncan played when Shaq was the best player, when Kobe was the best player, and then towards the end of his career when LeBron was the best player. Tim Duncan is one of, most people would tell you, and I'd agree, is one of the 5 best players in the history of the game of basketball. And yet he was never the best player in his sport at any given time in his career. The difference being with Bryce Harper and everybody else I just said, Kevin Durant, Tim Duncan, Hakeem Olajuwon, which, by the way, I already know what people are about to say. Hakeem Olajuwon, I'm not counting the 2 years Jordan retired because Jordan was mentally sick. So, excluding that, Bryce Harper might not only go down as a top 5 player all time, never be the best player in the sport because I don't think people are discussing like Trout's just a better player than him. Trout's the better defensive player, plays a more important defensive position, has just as much power, has more speed. Just Bryce Harper has a better arm, but that's it. Trout has 4 of the 5 better tools, and Trout is on pace to be the greatest player ever. Go check out my old Mike Trout is the GOAT video, by the way. When you think of Bryce Harper, not only can he be one of the 5 best ever, he has a chance to never win a title, which is the big difference between Durant, Duncan, and Olajuwon. And even Patrick Ewing, for that matter. Those guys, while they were never the pinnacle that Jordan was, that Kobe was, that Shaq was, LeBron was, or is, that they were the best player in their sport, and that kind of solidifies you as one of the greatest ever, one of a Hall of Fame player, you were at the top of your game, they all won titles. Even if it's only 1 title. Patrick Ewing only won 1 title. Olajuwon got 2 titles. Tim Duncan obviously has 5 titles. Durant just got his first title. You know what you are if you're the second best player in the world, you don't have any titles? You're Charles Barkley, which means you're far more famous. I'm going to keep the word of the day. Your narrative is far better as an analyst than it ever was during your career. Bryce Harper doesn't want to be Charles Barkley. And I love Charles. But nobody wants to be Charles Barkley as far as the player. As great as he was, never won a title, won MVP, and you can make a case, whereas Barkley overachieved being an undersized power forward. Bryce Harper hit a 450-foot home run at 16 years old. Someone check his P. And has been cited as the best upcoming prospect that we've had in ever. Like, Bryce Harper and Steven Strasburg had more hype coming up than any 2 players we've seen in the last 50 years. If you're Bryce Harper, you can't be Charles Barkley. You need to be the LeBrons of the world. You need to be the Kobes of the world. You need to be the Shaqs of the world. But you're not going to be there. So what does Bryce need to do to change that? Because you know who's really good about making sure they're remembered a certain way? Because I think a lot of these guys do have goals of wanting to be in the Hall of Fame at some point. They do want to be remembered as an all-time great. They want to be remembered in a certain way, and especially millennials do. Think about this, and I'm one, so I'm not here to criticize a generation. But you take a generation that since maybe 11, 12, 13 years old, even younger now, that have been on Facebook, have been on Instagram, have been on Snapchat, trying to get people's approval or trying to change people's opinions of them. That's what millennials have been doing since they were 11, 12, 13 years old. That's what Bryce Harper's been doing since he was 11, 12, 13 years old. Hey, look at this really cool thing I did this weekend. I'm going to post it on Instagram and I'm going to get all these likes and everyone's going to remember how cool my weekend was. Hey, look at this great thing I did. I'm going to post it on Facebook. I'm going to get all these likes and everyone's going to think, wow, his life's great. They're going to remember you a certain way. Bryce Harper's been doing this since he was 11, 12, 13 years old. And he's still doing it now as a 24, 25-year-old. He's got plenty of time to change this. I understand that. But he's kind of not a broken path, but if you look at the way he's trending and projecting, he's going to get 500, 600 home runs. But do you see them winning a World Series the next 10 years? No. And I understand baseball is probably the most unpredictable out of all the sports as far as winning a title. And a star player has never been criticized the same way an NBA star player, because an NBA star player has a far bigger impact on the game. But when you're Bryce Harper and you've changed how people view baseball players, you've been this megastar since you were 16 years old. You've been LeBron. You've been Kobe. You've been Shaq. You're going to have their kind of pressure.